The triumphal entry is a story that we remember every year right before Easter. It's the story that we base Palm Sunday on. But it's also a story that its meaning lies deep at the end of King David's story. You see, at the end of King David's story, he was a king trapped inside. He was a king who couldn't generate his own warmth and who could barely lead a nation. So he had to choose a successor, and he had already chosen his successor. It was going to be Solomon. But the rest of the kingdom saw an opportunity. As the king lay in bed, there was 3 people in the dark back alley plotting their way to the top. There was a son of David and 2 trusted advisors to the king who would put that son of David, the wrong king, on the throne. But instead of that, Nathan and David's wife Bathsheba prevented that and began to correct the course of Israel's history. As those 3 plotted behind, Nathan and Bathsheba went to David and told David about these plans. And David's response goes something like this in 1 King 1:33 through 35. The king said to them, "Take with you the servants of your Lord, and have my son Solomon ride on my own mule, and bring him down to Gahan. There let the priest Zadok and the prophet Nathan anoint him king over Israel. Then blow the trumpet and say, 'Long live King Solomon.' You shall go up following him. Let him enter and sit on my throne, and he shall be king in my place, for I have appointed him to be ruler over Israel and over Judah." So Solomon, the rightful king, came back to Jerusalem triumphantly on a mule. The son of David, who would be the true and rightful king of Israel, came back on a mule. Though he would be the rightful king, and he would be one of the wisest people to ever have walked on earth, he would not be the good king everybody expected. He would be a king who would ignore the people of Israel in order to boost his own military might. And he would be, in an extreme reversal of roles, a king who brought slavery into a land that was established by the great liberator Yahweh. You see, the story of Jesus, a descendant of Jesus Christ, as he came into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey in John 12, and as the people cried, "Hosanna, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord, the King of Israel," is as much a question that's seeking to answer, is a story that's seeking to answer a question, as it is a statement about who Jesus is. You see, the story of Jesus and the prophecy about a new son of David, a new king of Israel, have come together outside of Jerusalem as Jesus enters the city. And yet, as the people recognize Jesus' authority and recognize that what is happening, they are also asking a very penetrating question. They're asking, what type of king are you going to be, Jesus? What type of son of David are you going to be? And perhaps down the same dark, black alley, there was a group of people known as the Pharisees plotting against Jesus and looking to take him out of the situation. They were plotting Jesus' death and trying to keep their own power in the city. You see, the Pharisees were the good Jews. They were the people who followed the law to the T, and they already had the power. So as they were plotting against Jesus, they were plotting to keep the power. And the people who were there, the people who went out to meet Jesus, they were coming because they heard a story. There wasn't many stories about Jesus because the Pharisees and the Romans suppressed the message of Jesus. And though his ministry was 3 years long, there were many people who had only heard half-truths and rumors of who Jesus was and what his message was. So as those people sat at the dinner table with their friends, at a bar with other people, or perhaps just in the break room at work, they heard about a man who had raised another man back to life. This was the story that had happened just before Jesus enters Jerusalem. The story of Jesus bringing Lazarus back to life. And that is why the people go out to meet Jesus. So though we give of the people who go out to meet Jesus on Palm Sunday a lot of credit, what's actually happening is those people are responding the only way they know how. They're responding the only way they can think of with a man who raised another man back to life. They are responding with praise and palm fronds, shouting Hosanna, but also asking the question. We see you have power. They're used to the power. They're used to the miracles. They're used to a person who's coming into Jerusalem triumphantly. You see, just years prior, the Maccabees had entered Jerusalem in a very similar manner as they had conquered, they had cleansed the temple and beat the Romans and started the tradition known as Hanukkah. Just years earlier, these people had entered, and yet now the people of Israel were still being oppressed by Rome. So as they go out to meet Jesus, as they go out to meet him and recognize his authority and his power, they are still asking the question, what type of king are you going to be? But we know the answer to this one. The man on the donkey would be very different from any king that had come prior to him. As he rides in on the colt of a donkey, he brings hope. Not the type of military hope or military victory that the people are expecting. The hope of Jesus is not the hope expected. Instead, it is a hope of a new world, of salvation, of a life without sin, without death, but most importantly, in a relationship with God. As he rides the donkey, there is an answer to the people's question. There is an answer to the question of what type of king will you be, Jesus? Jesus is the king who loves the oppressed and listens to the cries of the people. As Jesus rides into Jerusalem and the people lay down palm fronds, God is very clearly saying that this man on the donkey, this king, this is the true and right Son of David. So as we celebrate this Day of Palms, as we take our palm fronds and hang them on the door as a way to show solidarity and celebrate who God is, remember who and what is being communicated as people are coming in. Because we know what type of king Jesus is. We know his peace and his love and his hope and his justice. And as we honor that true king, as we live in that hope and that peace, and as Holy Week approaches, let us find an appropriate response. Just as the people found an appropriate response to what Jesus did with Lazarus, let us find an appropriate response to what Jesus has done on the cross. Let us not ask, what type of king will you be, Jesus? But what type of follower will we be?